we're going to get this party started. Thank you for coming, everybody. This panel and the other programming today in Kennedy School is organized by Siren Nation. Siren Nation is a local nonprofit arts organization that encourages women in the arts and creates discussion and performance and exhibition opportunities. We're always looking for volunteers, so if you're interested, you can go on our website and communicate with us. If you didn't grab one on the way in, on the way out, grab yourself a program for our festival, and also there's a flyer that has all of our lovely speakers' bios and websites and everything, so you'll know where to find them online. And we also have feedback forms out in the hallway if anybody would like to give us suggestions or feedback on our programming. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amanda.
Hey. Well, initially I had wanted to do a panel with a couple of different styles of artists, like folks that have worked with major indie label and DIY type artists. Sallie is going to join us today, speaking kind of from the perspective of like an indie artist and what her experiences were with that label. That's my hope. I have not yet met these other ladies, but I wanted to also share my experiences as kind of a DIY type artist, working through this industry over the last like 15 years, and from switching goals from actually trying to be on a label to actually finding that how it's actually worked out a lot better for me in the long run to continue to be like an entrepreneur. And so my hope is to share some of my experiences as an artist who's been creating work for myself through these years, and to encourage other people on similar paths. I also was just involved in a really major production. I produced a full-length outlaw country musical that's kind of eaten up a whole lot of my time and mental capacities, sort of thing. So some of the things that I had envisioned for this necessarily come together with the full intention that I had initially. So thank you guys, but I'm hoping that we can all just kind of share some experiences and possibly speculate on what we can expect from where things are going based off of where they've been and how things are shaping up. So does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe we can all just kind of introduce ourselves and share a little bit of our background. Sure, yeah. You want to start, Rae?
All right, so I'm on this side. So I'm Rae Gordon, and I primarily blues and gospel, and I've been probably pretty steady since about 2001. About 3 years ago, I decided to quit a day job, and it was a government job too, funny enough. And my mom called it my midlife crisis. I call it my what if crisis, because what if you didn't put your passion first? You know, and you're 80 and you're sitting on a porch and you're like, you know, do you want to say what if, or do you want to say, wow, that was a fun ride? So I've been self-employed for 3 years, full-time musician, and play all over and then out of state. What if? What if crisis?
Well, I'm Sallie Ford. I'm kind of opposite of what you like. I'm sort of slowing down these days and realizing I was touring for like the past 10 years, and the music business has changed a lot, so I'm kind of trying to do other creative things and like learn other instruments and sort of take this time to figure out who I am, and not that's beyond just touring. But yeah, I would be totally happy with everything I've done with music anyway. Like I didn't do a ton, but I've done enough that I checked all the boxes, and I didn't need to sell out or anything, so I'm pretty happy. And I still want to play music and find a way to love it that's not just about making money, I guess. So I think this could be inspiring today.
Hi everyone, my name is Raquel Divar. I am a recording artist, MC, lyricist, rapper, and I've been recording music for about 10 years and actively putting out my music for about 7 years.
So I'm kind of curious, like
Yeah.
Is that okay? Putting you on the spot, is that?
Yeah, I mean, I moved to Portland in 2006, and I was mostly just like playing open mics, and I met that girl, Luzalena from Ila Bamba, at an open mic, and she kind of inspired me to keep playing, and we lived in this house right off Hawthorne, and this guy that was living in the house was best friends with the Avett brothers, just so happened. And yeah, I got to open some shows for them here, in fact. I think, when was that? I was like, wait, did I play here? A bunch of big minimums I played with them. And they kind of opened up, playing across the U.S. And I don't know, I never really pursued any business people. They always just like came to me, and I would see if they seemed cool, and I would just say, yeah. And it was really happening, yeah. It's just like, but I think music has changed a lot, so I don't know what's the future for streaming. I don't think music is over, but I think, we're gonna have to adjust how like you can make money doing it, or I don't know. If that's even the goal. Maybe that's not the goal though. It should be about what if, just doing what you love. Who cares?
What if crisis?
But I was on 2 different record labels, and that was pretty good. But I think I'd rather be DIY from now on. They're all kind of folding into each other. They're like buying each other out and like, I don't know. I just think a lot of the music business stuff is better as like doing as much as you can yourself. But I've done, I've worked with other people before.
No, that's great.
I don't know if that answers the question.
It's great, just getting a little background.
Yeah.
Hey,
Okay.
she's looking at me. So one thing that I learned, so I worked for 10 years for Clackamas County. I was an assistant, marketing assistant, and I was doing music on the weekends and then taking vacation to do other stuff and go out of town and, kind of massage the Bay Area, and I just was unhappy with my day job. And what I want to tell people is, I know each one of you has a passion, whether it's music or art or writing or something, or being a person that champions causes, that you have a passion that you want to put first. You go, hey, how can I do this? So I decided, fortunately, my job had changed enough to where I didn't like it anymore. So I was really, I started applying for other jobs, saying I want to, you know what I'm saying, right? It's like, but that's a gift. That's a gift that's happening right now, right? Is that your job has changed so much that you don't like it anymore, and it's pushing you towards your passion. So I'm like, what do I want to do? Why didn't I get this other job I applied for? When I got second or third. Like, I was always second or third. And I'm like, what do I want to do? Wait a minute, I want to be a musician. How can I make this happen? So I gave him a 3-month notice. I started saving enough for 1 month. So I saved enough for 1 month, and I started thinking, what is my first passion? First passion is music. What's my second passion? Marketing. So I decided to be a full-time musician and then take on marketing clients here and there. And that's what I tell people. I donated myself 1 year. I said, I'm gonna do it for 1 year, and I'm gonna see what's gonna happen. And that if you say 1 year, leave your regular life, you can always go back to it. Just dedicate 1 year and make it happen no matter what. I had 2 roommates in a 2-bedroom house. I lived in my breakfast nook. That was my bedroom. But I made it happen because my house was paid for, and I made it happen for 1 year. It was a little stressful. Around October, I was like, because I started in January. In October, I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. I only got like 2 more months. I hit the 1 year mark, and I said, I'm gonna do another year. So what I'm saying is, you can always go back. Just do 1 year. What if you took your life, you put your life, your regular day job, working for somebody else and their dreams, and you said, I'm gonna do this for 1 year. What can make happen? This is what happened for me. Is I put together another band. In this 1 year, I did a CD. It's getting really good. And we hit Roots music charts and stuff, number 2. I made 3rd in an international blues competition, and I've been all over the States and Canada. And I met all these goals, and my what ifs are taken care of. And if I go back to a regular job, I had that 1 year. Wait, no, I had 2 years. Wait, I had 3 years. So that's what I always tell people is like, just dedicate to your passion, whatever it is, 1 year. Just do 1 year, then you won't feel like, like you quit yourself if you go to a regular job again. Just do 1 year, see what happens. It's amazing. So there you go.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that too.
just do 1 year. You can always go back. But, so that's my little. I'm off my pulpit.
Well, a lot can happen in a
Yeah,
year.
I know, right?
In a year.
It's changed my life. It's been amazing.
I was just telling Peter back there that after this panel, I'm literally driving to the coast for a writing retreat, which I had exactly a year ago, gone on a writing retreat and wrote the script for my musical, the first draft, first of 21 drafts. But a lot can happen in that time, and also if you concentrate your efforts, actually giving yourself a little bit of a deadline can help build a lot of that momentum. But I was kind of thinking about as an artist, as a musician, and in this current landscape, like everything is kind of changing. Like it doesn't feel like we really have a whole lot of solid ground that we can kind of stand on. That what we as artists like have as our assets, and number one is really being good at your craft, And I think that especially like as like a DIY person, you're thinking about how am I gonna have a career. It's kind of easy to kind of start thinking about all the marketing and outreach and this and that sort of thing. But like in Sallie's case sort of thing, like you just got really good at what you were doing and people started paying attention. And to me, like I feel like early on in my career, which has been a long ass time, I'm an old lady now, but that it was almost a little bit like I'm trying to make a living doing this thing instead of like I'm trying to make art. And I had to circle back around to the art part of it, and really, so like for me, I've been studying opera for the last year. I've been studying with one of the top like acting coaches like the last like 3 years, and just really putting some investment into like the craft and the skill again. But aside from like reinvesting like time and that energy back into your own talents, I think the second most important asset is your fans. And that really what music does and what the industry does is it builds community, and thinking about how you can bring people together. And with social media, we kind of have that opportunity to kind of get a little bit there, but that is changing. If you guys pay attention to the algorithms, you'll notice your posts aren't getting the same kind of outreach that they got a year ago or 2 years ago. You can't invite the same amount of people that you could invite before to your shows. So, even like 3 years ago, you could invite a couple thousand people to one event. Now you can't invite more than 500 people. Instagram is owned by Facebook, so you're going to find similar problems with outreach with them. So I think creatively, we need to strategize ways to continue to maintain our community apart from the dependence on those social media stuff. So even having your own email list, it's awesome. I think that's the better way to go, but Google can suppress those too. And so I actually think going back to more old school type methods of outreach, like even old school mailers, and just calling people, texting people, and then having regular type events that are fun and engaging and engage people together too. So it's not just about come check out my music and see how great my band is, but like we're coming together and we're doing something, and that it's going to be better for you and for everyone else if you're there, as opposed to not, being there. So I think that that thinking creatively about how we continue to build community, and that if you're creating a good product and you have a good community, like the business stuff, I think will kind of work some of itself out, because you'll be able to be buoyant on that kind of support. Does that make sense? Like,
Definitely.
I'm curious, like, I see a lot of heads nodding with the Facebook stuff too. Like, how do you, I guess, like, reach your fans? Like, how do you
I mean,
engage
so
people?
I'm a millennial, so people are very engaged through social media. It's very true, but I mean, within the Portland community, there is like a huge support. So if you go out and you go to other people's shows and you know what I mean, meet people in person, that's a great way. But I mean, what I was feeling from what you were saying is that I do feel that dependency on the social media, and making a point to just have something separate from that and really like try to build something else away from that is like a really good way. And now I'm gonna actively like try to do that, because you know what I mean, it's very true that we as artists, and in this day and age, we are so dependent on social media, and they really have us in their pockets, you know what I mean? Like, they really can change anything on this algorithm any day, and it's really gonna affect what you can do. And I don't think that the ads on like Instagram, like I rarely will ever click on an Instagram ad, especially for something that is music or musical, but I will click on an Instagram ad for like a product, you know what I mean? So it's like choosing, as a DIY artist, like choosing where you're gonna spend your money, and like what your focus is, if it's gonna be, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, you know what I mean? So, yeah, that's just a really good point that you made.
I wish that, the Portland community could, music community could talk to the tech community and come up with some friendly tech app that would be better for musicians. And the future, I think, that needs to become a conversation, and I've thought about doing that. I think I saw you at a tech event. Yeah, I think I wish that we could pair up, artists and tech people could pair up together and have each other's best interests in mind. But I don't know enough about that world. But that's one idea I've had. I don't know, coming up with an app that would start with a Portland only app that would be for smaller bands and music oriented, and then if it could grow into something bigger. But I don't know. Maybe it's just big dreams.
And then everybody goes back on Instagram tomorrow. First thing.
But Instagram's horrible too. It's just I don't think it's good for your brain. I don't think it's that stuff.
Oh yeah, no, it's terrible.
It's addictive, and and I just hate that it just it makes you compare your life to everybody else and assume that everybody else is having a better life or more successful. Because that's also hard for me. I've toured with other musicians, and then I'll look at their Instagram, and I'm like, oh, they're still doing it. They're doing so good. I just assume. Or they have they have 3 times as many followers as I do now, because they've been actually out there. But
I thought I was the only one that did that.
I actually,
oh no, it's horrible.
in some research that I was doing, because I just put out a music video 2 days ago, and it's actually doing really well, but I did put in a lot of research before I released the music video. And one thing, I'm not even sure where I got this tidbit from, but he was saying if you have 100 diehard followers that are down to spend $100 a year on your music, come to your show, buy your merch, that's worth way more than 1,000 faint-hearted followers. Because you can actually, you know what I mean? If you have those, if you respond to their Instagram and then you put out a $40 t-shirt and you have 100 people buy that, that's worth more to you than 1,000 people who found you from a hashtag and are like, oh cool, I followed you for like 2 months and then I'm gonna unfollow you because you said something that I don't agree with or something, you know what I mean? And it's like, thinking about your opportunity as a musician in a different way, you know what I mean? And just thinking about how like those real connections that you can make with people might be what can actually get you paid more in the future, you know what I mean? And, you know.
I'm sorry if this is too soon for questions, but this made me think of this. Do any of y'all use Patreon?
What is it?
Patreon?
I've heard of that.
Okay, no.
I think it's more for, I've thought about trying to use it, but I
Yeah.
think it's more for like webcasting and like web series and stuff. Like I don't really see a way that I could really use that to my advantage, because like my music video is gonna come out, and if you're gonna pay $5 to see it like a week before, like I mean, like to me, I don't really see a lot of people putting in the effort to do that when they're gonna see it a week later.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've actually, I have been considering setting up a Patreon account myself. Actually, I actually have everything set up except for the video part of it. And I have been looking into it, and it seems like it would be a beneficial thing if you already have an established fan base who you already know is going to be willing to support you somewhat. If you are somebody that's just getting started, I think jumping into the pool and saying, hey, give me money, is probably not a great way to, you know, get your brand going.
Right.
Sort of.
I would be so freaked out to do that anyway. I can't even imagine. But
And I personally have been hesitant to do some of the Patreon stuff, and I also the Kickstarter and the GoFundMe, because I feel like a lot of that stuff gets really overdone, and I know my personal reaction to a lot of that stuff is, ugh! So like I feel kind of weird like trying to put that out there on just anybody, but I think that if you already have an established base, and I know for me, like, I know I definitely have a few fans who would probably give me some money, like, you know, but I'm like, broaching that subject is a little, and I think to do it in a way that is like, that's tactful too, and also that you're not giving too much away, because what I think happens with some of those things is that you try to give these incentives out, you know, like, oh, you're going to pay this much a month, and then I'm going to give this and this and this to you. You want to make sure that you're doing things that aren't going to interfere with the actual deep, meaningful work that you're doing.
Also, it's hard to follow up when you're busy, and especially if you're a DIY person, to follow up with those incentives and make them happen. It starts to stress you out.
Yeah, so like getting creative with, you know, some of the suggestions that I had seen. It's like if you're like a writer, to people, they want to give you a certain amount of money, maybe you name one of the characters after them, or like things that are not going to be like.
Well, that's like that's done a lot, I want to say, in like not-for-profit music business, where like if somebody makes a big donation, it's like the George Smith and Irene Gershwin. Yeah, exactly, or singer sponsored or whatever. But thank you, it's interesting to hear you talk
And
about.
you know, yeah.
Yeah.
One of my buddies, I came from SoCal 4 years ago, and we used to throw benefit shows, fundraisers, and we used to get all the artists who are struggling and trying to make money, have them vendor, and they didn't charge them a vendor at the event. And what we did is the people that donated for the event, we gave them a VIP access. So we gave them a free swag bag from each vendor that showed up,
nice.
that was there to represent their own brand. And basically we created a community out of that, and it's all about, for me, what I experienced is all about word of mouth with people. It's all about creating an experience. As soon as you meet them, they want to see that first impression on you. And then when they see that first impression of your music, on top of that, they're going to see more in depth of what your music's about because they know you personally.
Yeah. That sounds like a really brilliant idea, actually, and another way to build community within the industry too. I can say, being part of the acting community and part of the music community, that the acting community in Portland is a lot healthier in terms of like that there actually is an industry and there actually is a community. Whereas like it does seem like with music, it's kind of like every person for themselves sort of thing, and not cutthroat necessarily, but to me like it feels like it's shifting a little bit. But there were times, especially a few years back too, where it felt like that there wasn't it wasn't loving. And I would love to help facilitate a healthier feeling sort of community, whereas like with the actors and folks in the film and theater that I'm aware of, like we kind of come together and help each other on projects, and there's a lot of like vulnerability and authenticity exchanged too. And I think that if we can kind of help create a culture like that in the music community, like that would be like my ultimate goal. I think something like that would be a really great way to, one, share like our music amongst other musicians, but also invite other people in to feel like they're a part of something. So thank you very much for sharing that with us.
Well, one thing I wanted to bring up that kind of connects into that is, and welcome SoCal, Lake Elsinore, Riverside County.
Yeah, Riverside.
She had mentioned something about going to other people's gigs and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And that's another thing, for the musicians out there, it really makes a big difference to go to, when you have a weekend off, like I had a rare Friday off, and I hit three places. And I went to Riva Dirce and sat in, and that was nice, and then finished up at Trails End in Oregon City and was able to support. And that does take away the competitive edge, because we're all teammates, right? So, I mean, you're wearing the what is that, I don't know what baseball team that is, but.
Oh, this is a primitive hat.
Oh, it's not a baseball, sports. So, I mean, we're all team members, but another thing is that we are a little disjointed, where we got the soul group, we got the blues group, we have the indie group, we have the jazz group, and that, there's those little pockets when we realize that we're all the same, we're just, we have different audiences, so that going to another person's gig and supporting them also I call it cross-pollinating. So your little bee, so you're going to that flower, and then eventually, those bees will go to your flower, and it makes us all healthy. So that's one thing I wanted to say that she mentioned, and I thought that was a good mention.
Yeah, I'd have to say the Portland music community, I think it has a lot to do with, because it rains here all the time, it ends up being very pocketed, like everybody's in there, like it's the indie rock pocket, and they all go to the same indie rock shows, and then all the hip hop kids go to all these only hip hop shows, and there's different like facets within the hip hop community as well, and even, and so, but then another thing you can get into when that happens is like going out too much, and then you're always going to your friends' shows, so say keep a balance with that one, you know what I mean? You don't have to go to everything all the time.
But we can learn from each other,
Yeah.
different genres, for sure.
Totally, definitely.
I think it's also just good to go to see what's new in the city, like what you haven't heard of, and like
Definitely.
the people that are starting out and can sort of inspire you to do new things and work with new people or something.
One thing that, I think that you have a marketing background, right? So, in marketing, they always talk about how you want to like get really narrow with your messaging, and like as far as image goes, like you want to be like super focused. And I found like as an artist, like that's the exact opposite of what I want to do. And for like the longest time, I think that I had tried to kind of do this like little pigeonhole thing of like picking one thing and getting really good at it. And while that might be really good for marketing, I feel like that it's really damaging to like our artistic and creative community, because as artists, the more that we expand, like the more knowledge that we have in other directions, like the more likely we're able to stumble across across something that could actually be like really like meaningful, like for ourselves and maybe humanity, who knows, you know? But do you have any thoughts like on from a marketing perspective of like how to maintain like artistic like growth and expansion while still being able to like to reach people? Yeah, like.
You know, it's funny with marketing and stuff, and I do this with events. I think about who my two customers are, and this can help with music too. Is like I was putting on a benefit for blues people to get to Memphis on the Portland Spirit, and I'm like, okay, who are my two audiences? Well, you got the people that are going to support you because they love you who you are and they support your cause. So they're the low hanging fruit, right? And then the other people are people who just want to party and have some good time. So what I do is I put a line and I go, you put your foot in the one, which is the person that want to support you, and then you put the other one in the people that just want to party. And I lean my messaging toward them, but I keep a steady foot in both. But I lean the message like, you know, hey, there's music on every floor of the boat, and then a little bit later, proceeds go to help the, you know. So that's how I do it. That's how I do it with marketing, and I think that works with music too. And anything that is that you're still gonna honor both customers, but you're gonna lean your messaging toward the lower, your lower percentage customers, which is the party people. People are gonna support you because, you know. But the product on that boat was the same. It was people were buying into a personality and into a band. You know, there were 3 bands. So that's how you stay, so that's my marketing of like how to get people in the door. Because what's funny is I used to do tourism marketing, and my whole day was spent getting people in the door of the area, and then at night, my whole thing is get people in the door of the venue. So as long as when they get there, you know, how you get them there, I think could be really flexible. But once you get there, being true to yourself. And, you know, it's so funny, I was going to say something kind of in that vein where this international blues competition every year brings bands from all over the world. It's called the International Blues Challenge. And I had been there twice, didn't get to finals. And what changed this time, the third time, when I got to the finals and we made third, is one, I was told, play like you have something to say, not something to prove, right? Like you have something to say, and that stays to yourself. And then, what I realized is I tried to, the last 2 times, tried to compete with people. And even though it was a competition, and you know, we all feel like sometimes we're all vying for venues and stuff like that, but it was more about, what do I bring to the table to that final stage that no one else does? And enhancing that. And that's a marketing strategy too. It's like, what do you do that's different than everybody else? And it's not competition, it's just letting yourself shine as yourself. And then we got to the finals, and what I did is I looked at all the other bands that we were competing against, and I said, what do I do that's different? Not like, how can I beat that person? How can I beat that person? And be exactly who you are. And then that's a marketing strategy too. So there's 2 things of like how to get people in the door, which is to me leaning towards the lower percentage of your customer, but once they're in the door, being exactly who you are and nobody else. And that's my opinion.
Well, I think that with just music industry in general, like trying to carve out any kind of like living as an artist too, like, you know, the term selling out, like with the art, it's already been tossed around sort of thing, but like there's this idea that like if you make money as an artist, you're selling out. And to me, like I feel like that is toxic culture. Like as artists, as musicians, like we put time and work and energy into our craft just like anybody else. And to say that we don't deserve to be compensated for that, like I think it's like this thing where it's like, oh, I'm an artist, but I don't want to, deal with any of the money aspects of that. But I think for for artists and for women especially too, like that it's really important that like we step in and own like the business side of that, you know, so like understanding like, you know, the financial management of a business. And because essentially like if you're an artist, if you're a musician, you're an entrepreneur. You need to understand like how business works because you're gonna be self-employed for the rest of your life, you know. And those skills can translate and be brought into all other aspects of things. But once you like understand like how to, you know, set up an LLC, you know, to do those accountings and actually, you know, eventually you want to be able to have somebody else do that stuff for you. But to understand how to do it it's empowering. Like, and I think especially for women too, to understand how to run your business. And then that way too, if you turn it over at some point too, you can kind of make sure people aren't screwing you over sort of deal too. But I would like to see a bit of a separation from the toxicity of like, oh yeah, I don't want to sell out, or I can't make any money from my art. Because we all do have to make a living. You know, we still have real bills and real rent and things like that. And part of being creative, like we can create songs, you know, we can create music videos, writing, whatever. But also get creative with our events. Like, what was your name again?
Oh, Drew.
Drew, yeah, like what Drew had suggested. But getting creative with the community building, and just kind of eliminating limiting beliefs, like, and I think that saying that that I'm selling out if I ask for money as an artist sort of thing. So that's, to me, like looking at your craft as a legitimate career choice. Not necessarily about poverty sort of thing, which it's fun to give it away too. It's beautiful when we can do that, and it's a lovely gift when we can do that. And I love to be able to include people whenever I can, but to kind of, I don't know, I just want to shift the thinking around that. So I don't know, like, do you guys have, what are your experiences with like, I guess like limiting beliefs around like, you know, accepting money for art?
Well, I just really want to ask you guys a question right now because like I'm getting to the point in my career where I'm at a place where I could actually make money doing this. And so since you guys all have more experience than me, I'm wondering like how you maintain your value and like how do you determine like, okay, I'm gonna take this show, I'm not gonna take this show because they're offering me this or that, or and like really that would be like the active implementation of like getting away from those belief systems, you know what I mean, and being like, I'm gonna ask for more because like I deserve more, and like, oh, or whatever your percentage cut on like a licensing song or something like that. Like, how do you guys like approach these situations since you have so much experience?
Can I answer that? Well,
Yeah.
for me personally, it's the whole community thing, right? So if when you're taking the money or you're negotiating, if you think about what would bring the whole industry down, like if I say, okay, I'll do a bar gig for $200, then what does that say to the other musicians coming to the venue are not gonna get a fair deal either, because the Rae Gordon Band took $200. Well, we can't pay you more than $100. So when you're negotiating, you think about the bigger cause. That helps me in negotiating, and then also not being. This is the hard part for me. I love to seal a deal, and being able to losing a gig because they wouldn't go for what I asked for. That's hard for me. But now I have people on my team that are like, my music director. It's like I'm accountable to his opinions too. It's like if I take that low ball, my guys aren't going to be happy, and then the whole community suffers because I took less. So that's how I approach it myself.
Yeah, I think one thing, if I do a gig that's like not a lot of money, it either has to be like that they don't announce my name. I'll do that sometimes. I'll be like, because I feel like sometimes people want to use me to like sell tickets, and I'll be like, okay, well, just don't announce me and I'll play, and you can pay me barely anything. Or you can like play with less people. I don't know if you have a band. Like sometimes I'll just give them like the eco.
You're like, it's just gonna be me.
Yeah, I don't like playing alone, but you could do that, like playing less people, so it's like a more intimate show. So then you're getting more of the money,
Mm-hmm.
or you know, if it's like a really good cause, like, or you're getting traded in something, like I'll go play Sou'wester, that Coast Hotel thing, because they'll give me 3 free nights, and they'll barely pay me anything, but if they are like paying you in some sort of other way, like an experience.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just like playing less and trying to, that's what they always used to tell me, the people that I worked with, but I don't work with anyone anymore.
Play less and only take better
Yeah,
gigs.
but just like play like twice a year in Portland, then you'll, but I don't know, at the same time, it's like you gotta make money. I'm playing randomly and I don't have any strategy for it anymore.
Yeah, that was my entire summer, so yeah.
So I can tell you like that my experience as a performer, I've generally been able to make more money producing the shows myself than to be hired by so if somebody wants me to come play music to people, I call it like music to be ignored, you know, like in dinner and stuff, that's fine. Everybody, you know, it's good to make a couple $100 sort of thing, but actually like being your own event promoter and producer, like, you know, I know people call it pay to play. It's not actually. If you rent the venue and then do it all, you get, I mean, it's a bigger risk. You do have to take out insurances, but you have a better chance of actually like making a decent profit off of a show, especially if you're going to go through all of the trouble of, you know, reaching out to your entire fan base, like get a couple hundred people out to a show. Like you can go play a show at the Doug Fir, bring a couple hundred people out, but you're not going to make that much money, especially with 2 other bands on the bill, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
But so I actually think like using your fan base. Now if you're still building a fan base, definitely take those shows. Definitely do the shows where you're like multi-billed with people who are going to be seeing you, you know, and don't worry so much about the money. But the thing is too is like the actual money is going to be in your merch sales and your album sales too. So,
Definitely, yeah.
So if you have people who are coming out to the show and they want to support you, you're going to be able to get more. And so for me, like I've always been firm on my album pricing. It's always been $15. I say I'm negotiable though, so if somebody really wants it, they can just have one. But you know, to not be like, oh, they're $5, or they're like, you know, 10, or wishy-washy about it. No, they're $15. A lot of times people will just give you 20 for them.
Yeah.
You know? So people want the opportunity to be generous too.
Yeah,
so.
definitely. It's like you drop the album, you have the release party with the merch, like, you know, and that's a good plan.
Well, different venues in town will pay differently too, so I think just seeing what different people pay, and
Yeah, well,
and establishing one that you like, that you know will like, you can look back at what you were paid before.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, well, in the hip hop scene, it's not really a venue type situation like it is with a lot of like acoustic or like rock music. It's very based on promoters, and like there are specific venues that do hip hop, but it's more it's really based on the promoter's event. You know what I mean? Because there's not that like die hard like Portland, like the Portland hip hop scene only even started to really be like super active in the past 3 years. Like there wasn't really anything at all when I moved here, and that's partly due to the Portland police used to shut down hip hop shows a lot, and just like they would just come roll outside and be like, what are you guys doing here? But in the past like 3 years, there's been a couple of monthly events that have sprung up, and then just like more hip hop shows in general. But that's why now you guys are opening my eyes to, like, you know, why you guys get paid more, because there's, as like acoustic musicians, because there's like, just like this whole history of that kind of music and these kind of venues, and you guys bring out people for these shows, and like, that's how, you know, it's, a whole different community than the hip hop community, and that's still building here.
One thing that, for going on what Raquel was talking about for the hip hop community is very tight knit. People have their own circles already, and once you have your own, they have their own circle. It's when you're an artist coming up and you're trying to bond or vibe with these people, they're a little off put because they don't want you to imitate or take from them. It's more closed minded in the hip hop community. And what I like to do is, what worked for me, I have never done a show. I used to b-boy out in SoCal, so I just break dance. But I produced in Portland, I've been producing for about 3 years now. And I've never done a show, but yet my Instagram followers, my Facebook, my YouTube is just starting to rise. Just because I'm putting out content, I'm reaching out to celebrities, I'm reaching out to artists who are local to where I was from. I have connections, a little bit of connections to like DPGC and Snoop Dogg and them. But the thing is, it doesn't mean that I'm there. It doesn't mean that I already have that connection. I have to build my merch, I have to build my label, I have to build my brand, I have to look into creating a whole organization for myself and for whoever wants to come into my area. So basically like giving out free shirts to these artists that are already booking for South by Southwest, if they're booking at Smokeout, or if they're booking at As the West Was One. You give out your free merchandise to them, they're more likely to wear it on stage, and they're more likely to advertise it for free, because you're not selling it to them. You're actually trying to come up, but at the same time they see your hard work that you put in, because you got so much different networking going on.
I wanted to go back and address what you're saying about feeling like you're selling out. Two things I wanted to say was, you know, I worked in the office for years, and I was afraid that when I became a full-time musician, that it would make me like the other musicians I knew, where you were stressed out about getting a gig every weekend because you had to pay your bills. I was really, really worried about that. I didn't make a lot as an office person, but it was steady. And the first, you know, I have a friend named Ken Brewer, you know Ken Brewer, great keyboard player. And he was always, you know, hey, do you have any gigs? I lost a gig, you know, can you use me? And I'm like, God, I don't want to be that person. But the first time I went to a gig and I got $100 and I knew it was going to pay my phone bill. The respect I had for that money was amazing. That's what happened. I was like, it was nothing like I thought it would be. I wasn't stressed. I respected myself more for what I was doing. So that's one thing. But the other thing is one thing, because I have that issue too, because two points. One thing is like, we're the product. Why somebody makes something, they go, here you go, there's the product, you're away from it. So you have to accept that you are the product, and that's really hard, especially for women, you know, that might have some issues and stuff, accepting their worth, right? Mm-hmm. Or guys can have that too. But here's the thing, is the more and more I promote a particular gig, the more I step away from that, because I'm their employee, in a sense, and I'm helping them get people in their door. So if I'm playing Blue Diamond, like New Year's Eve, right? So if I'm playing Blue Diamond, I haven't pushed it out yet. So I'm gonna feel less like I'm worthy. But the more and more I push out that gig, the more I get them people, the more I am their employee, their coworker, their partner. So the more you're a partner with pushing out a gig, the less you're gonna feel like that you're selling out, because you're working hard for it. So that takes it away from the whole like, I'm the product and like, I'm helping them get people in the door. And that helps me sometimes when I'm feeling like I'm selling out. So.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I know that for me, when I did the musical this last time, it was a lot easier for me to push that and to sell that, as opposed to be like, oh, I'm me,
it's hard,
you know,
it's hard, yeah.
Because also the more you involve the people around you, your band, and you make it a about the community and less about yourself.
Right.
Because, I mean, how many
Yeah.
times do you see, like, oh, there's this another singer-songwriter, like, playing this thing, trying to get you to do, and it's just like, you know, even I have an off-put, like, visceral reaction to that, and
Yeah.
so there's something in that, I notice, too, like, when I have those reactions to other people, and their things, I try to think about, well, what am I doing that's similar? Or how would it be better if this person, you know, who's like raising money for Patreon or for GoFundMe, or who's trying to get me to come to their CD release party or something like that, like looking at that, why am I reacting this way? Or if somebody does a really good job too, to look at that and to think about, you know, how could you apply it to your own outreach sort of thing.
Because you're selling an experience.
Yeah.
And also, it's something to be pointed out that I personally, I know that there's some musicians that think it's the venues, that's their responsibility to get people in the door, and then some musicians think, oh no, it's the musicians. I say we're partners. So that, yeah, right? So if I give 100% to get people in the door, and they give 100% to give people through the door, that's 200%. If one of us doesn't give our 100%, that's still over 100% of dedication and stuff. So we're partners. It's not us and them. It's us together. And I think a lot of times I've come across musicians, you know, I have a feeling not you guys, but there's been some musicians that have told me, oh no, I mean, why? It's up to them, the venue, and I'm like, you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
Because we're selling the experience, right?
Yeah, I know. A girlfriend who posted that on her Instagram one time and was
I've
like,
seen that
she was playing all these shows and she was like, hey, if I'm playing your show, like, don't expect me to promote it. And I was
What?
like, this is the crazy. I was like, why would you ever say this? Like, yeah, that's just crazy to me.
Because the more you promote, the more you're going to be respected as a musician.
Well, yeah, and then people want to book you because you're going to help them get people in the door for the show.
And it's the whole community thing, is that when
Yeah.
you think about the community with what we're doing, like I know it's dorky to say this, but point it out, but at the end of every show, I make sure that I bus all the tables, I clean off the, you know, and I clean off the stage, and I know I've picked up trash from 2 weeks prior. But the thing is, when you're doing all this stuff, and anything that you're doing, any kind of, if you're doing an art show or something, if that's your thing, it's like, leave it better than you found it. They say, pack it in, pack it out, right? So that's what I think about when I'm doing the musician thing. It's like, what am I doing that's gonna look bad for musicians overall? And that's a community thing that you said, yeah, that build it as a community, and, you know, and they will come.
You already went over it, I understand, but you brought up LLCs earlier, and as you know, people who were hiring other people a lot and paying our band members, are any of you doing an LLC, and what were the reasons for that, and what do you find the benefits to be, if you do have one?
Well, you could take things off your taxes, and yeah,
Well,
it's.
you already can write off
Yeah.
independent contractors.
So like, I have a really great, he's works with self-employed, so I suggest getting someone that's a CPA that's specialized in self-employed, and yeah, he's takes things off in my house, like percentage of square footage. What I used to,
Yeah, my own taxes, I just wonder about the LLC part of it, like.
Well,
as far
I think it's great as a musician to have an LLC because it actually provides a little bit of distance between yourself and your liability. Like, that's the whole reason to have one, is so that if something were to happen related to the business, that they could sue the business, but would have a little bit of a barrier between actually being able to. So it's a little bit of protection. It can be, if you're a sole proprietor, it can still be a little wonky. Actually, Peter probably knows a lot more about this than I would, but I have 3 LLCs, actually. I have one for the production company that just did the Whiskey Dixie. I have one for my band, and then I also work as a henna artist, too. So I have separate bank accounts for all of those, and there's some fees involved in
Yes.
registering with Secretary of State, and then you have separate taxes on each one of those. But, as a self-employed person, like, you can essentially, as an artist, you can write off almost everything, except for groceries. But even then,
And yeah, in your gas, mileage.
Yeah, I'm all on all the mileage stuff and the meals and entertainment and the out-of-town expenses per diems and things like that. It's just like a matter of having so many people in my band.
Yeah.
And so like I was just wondering, so that would be a reason, is to have that kind of barrier. I understand that legally. Okay.
Like if somebody got hurt at one of your gigs,
Right.
they could
So
try
that'd
to
be
sue
like
you.
liability insurance.
If
like
you had them
getting that
dancing
kind
and then they broke a leg or something.
Right.
They would sue the LLC.
The LLC, but then wouldn't you still be responsible?
But you
So,
can't
yeah,
lose your house.
Yeah, you wanna lose.
Right, you can't lose your personal, okay, got
I
it.
think the only reason I did it, was with the CSAC or BMI or ASCAP, on the side where you have to say that you're the publishing company that owns part of the writing. I know at one point I was advised to make up something that's not my name for that publishing company,
Yes.
and then at a certain point I did make that a business, the LLC, which then when I was playing internationally helped me because then I could, there's some weird thing to not be taxed internationally on income that would be like royalty related, but I don't know if you would ever play internationally and have that.
Sure.
But that's the only reason
That
I've
makes
done it.
total
I don't
sense.
think that the sole proprietorship has worked for me personally, but maybe,
Yeah.
what were you gonna
I
add to
was just
that?
gonna add a few things. I mean, the main reason people do it is you're doing gigs, you're using your social number, you have an EIN for an entity. It just, you're not being taxed in a band situation, or you're not assuming all that liability on your own
Right,
social
that's
number.
what
So
I'm thinking.
have an EIN for that. The other thing is, if you have what's called an operating agreement for your LLC, it's kind of a band agreement. So if you're putting out albums, it's, okay, who owns the name, who owns the sound recordings, who owns the publishing, and you can route all that band or performance-related income through one entity, and just for the accounting, we have these band expenses, we had this band income, you average that out and then make distributions at the end of the tax year for each person having whatever amount was the net from that whole thing. So there's a number of good reasons to do it aside from the liability and the just accounting aspect.
Great, thank you. That's excellent. I have another question.
It's a pain in the ass.
You say you had another question?
Yeah, so are you guys working with teams? Do you have people, I know you're saying you're newer coming into this, do you have managers, booking agents? Who all are you working with, and how are you finding those things to be in it? As far as if you did it yourself versus having someone else do it, because I know you probably all started out doing it yourself.
I do it
but-
myself.
Yeah.
But then
All of it?
the best thing I ever did was have a music director he does the logistics, so he's my keyboard player.
Okay.
So he kind of keeps people in line a little bit and takes that off my plate so I can concentrate on the marketing and the booking. And then sometimes he's really good at, and it goes back to the are we worth it thing. I have that problem. So I had this Canada gig come in, and I had him negotiate the price, and he got good price and stuff, and he negotiated and worked out all the logistics on stage and how we got there. So that was the best thing. So I call him part of our team. So it was hard to let that go, but it's for the better good. It's like I always say in anything that rather than spend all this time trying to better what you don't do well and you don't like, find somebody that enjoys it and does it well. And it's strong. It's to be strong to say I don't do this well and I don't like it. So now if you don't do it well but you like it, there's a chance that you could learn it. But if it's not something that really lifts you up and you enjoy, give it to somebody who does, and he does. So that's helped me greatly, and especially in negotiations when I have to concentrate on other stuff.
I parted with everything about a year ago. It all fell through. So I've had a manager, booking agent, record label, and good riddance. Sorry, but yeah, the manager I held on to for way too long. I think the only thing that's necessary is a booking agent. But for me, I'm just booking myself for now because I already have established relationships with venues. And I've found that I can look back on what I've made at those venues and ask for similar offers, like guarantees. But I think, yeah, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna add, I'm Sallie's dad.
Congratulations.
Sal's mom suggested for a side. I'm an artist. That you create an email. So my assistant is Barbara, and when the negotiation comes, Barbara gives the hard news. And then you get to the gig and you've got that separation as if you had an agent who did the whole thing, and you put on your Barbara hat and just do it.
Yeah, I mean, coming at it as a girl, like have a man's name, you probably get more money.
I know.
I think, I mean, a record label might be good for like, to get the cost of like reproducing stuff done. Or if they're like willing to pay for some of it, but you just don't want to get in the point where you're owing them money or anything.
Yeah.
Or like, it's just complicated legally, but I mean, now all I have anymore is an accountant who is like my mom here, because my parents live on the East Coast, so she just holds my hand through any annoying like tax thing I have to do. And then, I think just booking agent, just definitely don't, managers, and maybe in like the 90s or something when musicians were getting like $200,000 advances, but it's not, I don't really know what they could do, what they can bring to the table at this point.
Yeah, I hear you.
So yeah, you could even making up your like your band name or your name, like booking, making a whole another email for that, and then don't even have an identity, just don't even answer it with like, oh, they aren't available at this time, and then manager like booking. I don't know, like don't. Yeah, I'd say that's a good way to do it, but I don't know if y'all have.
Well, I've done a lot of stuff myself, and I've worked with people as well. I've had a manager in the past. I've had a couple managers. I've had some booking agents, and I'm also hired. I've had PR firms. I actually had the luxury of being sponsored by one for a number of years, which was really wonderful. If you guys can do that, I highly recommend that. The people that I have hired that were people that have approached me and that had like fire, that were excited about it and that wanted to do that and were willing to work for percentages and stuff, I had good experiences with. When I've hired people and paid them lump sums of money up front, I've had really bad experiences with it.
Just like construction.
I hired a booking agent to do a tour, paid them up front, an advance for it, and then I never heard from them again. That's happened. I've hired multiple PR companies before, and I've had better luck, honestly, doing my own press and PR than I have giving people, large sums of money to do it, because it's a crapshoot. And honestly, I think it actually looks better when the artist sends out their own press releases too, because they're like, oh, this is like, it's more homegrown as opposed to like, oh, just another, and to make things as like personal and concise as possible. And the thing with booking, with any like reaching out to media, they don't care about all of this stuff. Just make it one paragraph, just get to the point, and be persistent, be really persistent. I've had a lot of luck with my shows, also with like getting endorsements and sponsorships and things like that. Even for my last show, we got a Shure endorsement, and they sent us a bunch of headsets which is great. Saved me like $6,000 or something like that for a 5-week show. But I found the regional person he might be watching this. Hi Tim, if you are. But I basically annoyed him into an endorsement.
So you went looking for that?
I did, yeah. And I find like, especially with the shows, like where I have a need, and if it's a financial need, what kind of an ask it is. And then being really polite, but being really persistent. Like, honestly, like, tenacity and politeness will get you get you pretty far, Like, you don't want to be annoying, and you definitely don't want to be an asshole. But, don't be afraid to ask, because most of the time, people don't even want to ask. It's scary to ask, you know, just to pick up the phone. People don't want to talk on the phone either, and that's also a really good way to make things happen too, is to actually to show up in person. It's harder to say no to somebody in person than it is via email. You don't have to respond to an email.
Yeah.
You know, but like making a phone call, and just showing up, and I think also, you know, setting like micro goals. Like you have like your big goal, but then you have like your to-do list, like, okay, all the little things that you could do to do that, and like count your wins, you know, because this thing, working for yourself, you have no idea what day is your day off. Is there such a thing, you know? And like it's easy to just kind of feel like overwhelmed, like there's just so much to do, you know? So like everything that I get to cross off my to-do list, like that's you know, gold right there. Like that's my win, is just like making those things happen. And I have this little spiral notebook that goes back, so it's like basically one long to-do list, you know, and going back through it, you know, even looking at ones from like last year, you're like, oh, that didn't get done, but it didn't matter because this whole other thing happened, and you know, but celebrating those wins with it. But I think in the end, like you can hire out a lot of stuff, but like having people that love you do the work, or do it yourself, you know, because if people aren't like invested emotionally, like in a project, it's gonna just, you know, it's the whole idea of like war too, you know, like the whole, not to get all like spiritual or whatever, but you know, like whose side is God on, whatever, like whoever is like the most passionate about it, sort of thing. So, you know, if you have a team that believes in you and that loves you, and that's gonna make a lot more difference than like somebody with the most connections, or you know, because they might not give a shit about your project. So.
I was gonna say, when doing booking and stuff, and do you do booking, your own booking, right?
Yeah, I do all the booking, band management.
I've noticed I've had more success when I take out any question marks. So when you send a note, you know, like say that you want to book me. So I'll send you a note, I'll send you an email, and I go, so do you think that you might have any dates maybe in spring that my band, you know? Or I go, hey, I'm calling you, I'm sending you a note because we have some open dates. I want to know what dates would be available in April. So you see how the difference is?
Oh,
and I've noticed that people approach that differently. Then you want to give me, give me a
then
date,
I would say,
right?
I want to say what dates I have available.
Yeah, so it puts you in a, so what I say is approach it like it's the second conversation. You know, that's how I approach it, and that's always been more successful for me than just, if you write, an inquiry to a venue, make sure there's no question marks in it.
Love it. I love that. That's great.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
That might be the most valuable thing.
Yeah, that was
Take out the question marks.
You love me. Trust me. Yeah.
If you have a question mark in your inquiry, take it out. So.
Very good.
Well, I remember trying a thing too a while back where it's like women specifically use like apologetic language a lot of times.
Sorry to bother you.
Yeah, and I remember like, you know, reading a thing about it, and I'm like, oh, you know, I'm gonna try communicating without apologetic language. So I tried it once, and I got a really, really bad response.
And you're probably doing a good job.
I was like, well, I've never seen somebody so angry over. Like, okay, you know, but I do feel like sometimes, like, you know, we have to like feel like we need to cover our asses a little bit with that. But I like that direct.
If you got any question mark, take it out.
Yeah.
And then you were we were all talking about if we book ourselves, and do you book yourselves?
Oh yeah, I book myself, and I've worked with some labels before. No huge labels, but currently I'm doing everything myself, and I've found that through the small amount of labels that I've worked with, I would never go with a label again unless they're going to A, put promo behind my work and like spend money on it to get it out there, or B, they have like such a huge following that it's going to expand me to a new audience. Other than that, like there's no reason to not do things yourself, you know what I mean? Because really, because when you give them that traffic, like they're getting that traffic and then you're not really getting that traffic, like, because on one of my past music videos, I got it uploaded by a different YouTube channel. I got a lot of views, a lot of likes, and like some of those transferred over to fans, but not very many. And then that's all those plays on my YouTube channel, you know what I mean? And so, you know, this last one, I put it out myself, and so now I'm accumulating all those plays myself, and like maybe I don't have, I didn't reach like a whole new fan base, but I'm gaining this, you know, repertoire now on my own page, and you know, and so that's what it's really about, you know.
Yeah. Good.
I have a question about, I'm so sorry. I have a question about the directness of communication, how you guys kind of like started to touch on that, and then like obviously from a female identifying perspective is one thing. How do you find that in the Portland community as well? In other arts communities in which I've lived, it's more direct. There's a more direct style of what, like you said, what days are I'm booking gigs. I'd like to see what days you have open versus, oh please may I see what days you have open?
Right.
Thank you so kindly. Like how have y'all found that experience too? Yeah, I guess that's my question.
It's better when it's direct, for sure.
Really, even here? Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, no apologies. It's
Right.
funny, true.
I would say that style in Portland. Actually, I have actor friends who have been told, like, if you're ambitious, you're not going to do well here. And it is, because it's very laid back. You know, it's very laid back, and so like it just depends on the person that you're dealing with. But I think honestly, like, just being, you know, polite, direct, be yourself, and if you know anything about that other person, like, engage them in some way. You know, but I don't think that there's any like blanket do it this way. And definitely don't send form letters. Like the whole like copy and paste thing doesn't work. You really do want to craft like something really specific. And if you have a relationship with that person too, like bring it into your communication. You know, so if you know like their family and their partners, that sort of thing, like ask about them, like and be sincere about it, like, you know, and that just but being direct and unapologetic, I think is let's all try to do that.
No sorries, no question marks. There you go.
I think we're going to be wrapping it up like here, so I really appreciate you guys all hanging out with us and ladies doing the panel, and
Thank you so much for
thank you so much for having us.
If you haven't seen Amy Schumer's sketch about that, go after like next time you're online because it's killer.
Amy Schumer. No apology.